The alien eyes in the forest. The jungle was thick with mist. Giant trees rose into the sky like towers. Strange birds made sharp calls from high branches. But Reed Carter moved through the forest without a sound. His face was calm. His boots stepped lightly on the wet ground. He wasn't just walking, he was hunting. He had been tracking something big. Tracks too wide for any normal animal, claw marks on trees, and a strange smell, like burnt metal. Something wasn't right here. But Reed didn't show fear. He had hunted in war zones. He had survived freezing mountains and burning deserts. This forest was just another challenge. What Reed didn't know was that he was also being hunted. High above, hidden between thick branches, a pair of glowing silver eyes watched him. The eyes belonged to a tall female figure, an alien huntress, named Veska. Veska was not from Earth. She had come from a planet called Drevelis, where only the strongest survived. She was one of their best warriors, chosen to study Earth's predators. But what caught her attention was not an animal, it was a human. From the first moment she saw Reed, Veska knew he was different. He moved like a shadow. His hands were steady, his breath slow. He didn't rely on machines or scanners like her kind. He used the wind, the ground, the sounds. He felt the jungle. Veska narrowed her eyes. "Strange male," she whispered. "No armor, no weapons, but a simple blade and rope. Yet, he walks with no fear." She followed him silently, jumping from branch to branch. No human had ever noticed her before, but this one was alert, focused. Then, it happened. A sudden roar echoed through the forest. Birds flew into the air. The ground shook. Reed turned his head slightly. He crouched. His hand reached for his knife. But his face didn't show fear. It showed interest. A massive creature stepped into the clearing. 12 feet tall, 4 legs, 2 arms with hooked claws. Its body was covered in bone plates. It wasn't from Earth. Veska's heart raced. The Zarnak. It must have crossed through the rift between worlds. She had only seen one once before, and it tore through 10 Drevelis soldiers. "No," she whispered. "This human can't face that alone." But Reed didn't run. He stood. The creature growled and charged. Veska tensed. "He'll die." But what happened next made her eyes widen in shock. Reed didn't move until the last second. Then he rolled under the beast, slashed its leg, and disappeared into the trees. The creature roared in pain, swinging wildly. Veska followed him with her eyes. He was already setting traps, fast, silent, precise. He tied a net, sharpened sticks, dug a quick pit, all in under a minute. The Zarnak charged again. Reed led it straight into the trap. The beast fell into the pit, but not fully. It pulled itself halfway out, furious and bleeding. Reed climbed a tree, waited, then jumped onto its back with his knife. He drove it into a weak spot near the neck. The beast screeched, rolled, and slammed against a tree. But Reed held on. Finally, with a final push, he twisted the knife deep. The creature stopped moving. Silence returned to the jungle. Reed stepped back, breathing hard, blood on his arm, a small cut on his cheek. But he stood tall. Veska stared at him, stunned. She had trained with the strongest warriors, fought deadly beasts. But never had she seen a human take down a Zarnak alone. No plasma rifle, no power armor. Just skill, speed, and courage. She whispered to herself, voice trembling. A hunter like that deserves to pass on his genes. She follows the human hunter. The jungle had gone silent after the beast's death, but Veska's thoughts were louder than ever. She had seen many warriors in her lifetime, commanders, champions, even assassins, bred in vats, but never a creature like him. Who was this human? She didn't return to her ship, she didn't report back. Instead, she followed Reed Carter. From the shadows, from the trees, through the thick green fog, she became his ghost. She watched as he cleaned the blood from his blade using only a leaf and stream water. watched how he built a fire with dry bark and no tech. He didn't speak, didn't use any comm device. His silence wasn't empty. It was powerful. He didn't know he was being watched, or so she thought. For the next 3 days, she followed him. Not like a soldier, but like a scientist studying a rare wild animal. Reed hunted with his eyes and ears, not scanners. He knew how to walk without breaking twigs. He made traps from nothing. He caught his meals without firing a shot. Veska took notes in her mind. He uses instincts, no training, yet still perfect. And still, he hadn't looked back, hadn't sensed her, but Veska knew better. On her planet, hunters always feel eyes on them, if they want to survive. That night, she sat in a tall tree above his camp. Reed had made a shelter from bent branches and giant leaves. Rain hit the roof, but he stayed dry. The fire crackled low. Suddenly, his voice broke the silence. "You've been following me for 3 days. Veska froze. "I don't mind," he continued, still not looking. "But if you're gonna keep stalking me, at least share a name." A long silence. Then, Veska dropped from the tree, landing without a sound. She stepped forward slowly. Her silver eyes glowed in the firelight, skin pale blue under her black armor, long white braid over her shoulder, muscles tight, but graceful, like a panther. "I am Veska," she said. Reed finally looked up. His eyes didn't widen in fear, just calm curiosity. "Not from around here, huh?" he asked, almost like a joke. Veska tilted her head. "You should fear me." Reed raised an eyebrow. "You should have attacked earlier if that was your plan." She said nothing. Instead, she sat across the fire from him, her face serious but her mind racing. He knew I was there, from the start. He offered her a piece of roasted meat. She stared at it. "You eat?" he asked. "I hunt," she replied. He smirked. "That's a yes, then." She took the meat. For the first time in her life, Veska didn't feel superior to a species. She didn't feel like the apex. This human was something else. Not just strong, but unpredictable. And unpredictability was the most dangerous trait of all. Finally, she asked the question burning inside her. "You killed a Zarnak with a rope and a knife. No armor, no help, no fear." Reed leaned back against the tree trunk. "You call it a Zarnak. I just called it dinner." Veska didn't smile, but something inside her stirred. Respect, curiosity, and something else. Strange and new. She studied his face, the rough jawline, the scars, the calm eyes of a man who had seen too much and survived anyway. Her heart beat faster, and not just from admiration. He wasn't just a hunter. He was something else, something her world had never seen. The challenge of the Beast King. The night was cold and the fire burned low. Veska didn't sleep. She sat across from Reed, watching him as he fixed his broken knife with jungle vines and stone. The stars above were strange to her, but the man in front of her was stranger. "You are not like the other humans," she finally said. Reed didn't look up. "I could say the same about you." She paused. Then she stood. "There's something I need to tell you," she said. Reed glanced at her. "Let me guess. Something worse than the last beast is coming?" Veska nodded slowly. "Far worse." She stepped closer and knelt beside the fire. Her voice lowered. "The Zarnak you killed was only a scout. There is another. We call it the Beast King. A mutation. Faster, smarter, angrier." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Why is it here?" "It came through a rift, an accidental tear between our worlds. It wasn't supposed to survive here, but it did. And now it's hunting everything, including us." Reed didn't speak. He looked into the fire for a moment. Then, he simply said, "Where?" 2 days south. I was tracking it before I found you," she answered. Reed stood, slung his pack over his shoulder and picked up his spear. Then we better leave before it finds us. Veska frowned. You're not afraid? I've faced worse, he said. But this is not like your earth animals. It thinks. It studies. It learns. Reed's lips curved slightly. Good. I hate dumb enemies. Veska blinked. He's insane, she thought. But maybe that's why he wins. As they moved through the forest together, Veska noticed something else. Reed didn't just survive in nature. He belonged to it. He knew which plants were poison, which birds signaled danger. He even predicted the weather by watching how the ants moved. No soldier on her planet had instincts like this. On the second night, as they camped near a river, Veska offered him a plasma blade. You'll need this, she said. It can cut through the Beast King's hide. Reed looked at the sleek alien weapon. It hummed with energy, glowed blue at the edges. He took it, studied it, then handed it back. I hunt with my own hands. Veska stared at him, shocked. You'd reject advanced tech out of pride? No, he said. Out of trust. I trust what I've built. What I know. Veska didn't argue. But in her mind, something had changed. This man isn't just a hunter, she thought. He's something rare. Something primal. As they neared the territory of the Beast King, they saw signs. Broken trees, crushed bones, claw marks in stone. Even Veska's breath quickened. And then, the roar came. It shook the trees. Birds scattered. The ground trembled. Reed didn't flinch. Veska whispered, It knows we're coming. Reed simply said, Good. He began to set traps. Not with machines, but with vines, pits, rocks, and sharp sticks. Veska watched him work. How did you learn all this, she asked. He answered without looking up. War. Survival. A lot of bad choices. Then he glanced at her. Stick close. I want you alive. Veska felt her chest tighten. Not because of fear, because this human, this wild hunter, had just said he wants her to live. She nodded. As night fell, the jungle grew quiet again. Too quiet. Then came the growl. Low, close, and heavy. Reed stepped forward, spear in hand. Veska whispered, There's no turning back now. Reed smirked. There never was. The hunt begins. The sun hadn't even risen when Reed opened his eyes. He wasn't woken by sound. He never slept too deep. Survival had taught him long ago that sleep was a luxury, not a right. Beside him, Veska crouched on a tree branch like a silent guardian. Her silver eyes scanned the jungle, sharp and focused. She whispered, It's moving. It's close. Reed nodded. Then we move faster, but Veska hesitated. You still plan to trap it? She asked. Reed replied, That's the only way to kill something smarter than you. Make it think it's winning. Veska dropped from the tree and landed beside him. You think like prey, not a warrior. Reed smiled. That's why I survive. They spent the next few hours moving like shadows through the trees. Reed didn't talk much. He worked. He gathered vines, sharp bones, and sticky sap from tree trunks. He layered leaves with poison. He dug narrow trenches and filled them with spikes. Veska watched it all, amazed. On her world, they used energy weapons and sensor drones. Reed used sticks, dirt, and instinct. She finally said, You're building a battlefield with nothing. Reed glanced at her. I'm not just fighting the Beast King, I'm building a story he believes. A trap is only deadly if it lies well. That made Veska pause. Lie to the hunter. Let him become prey. By afternoon, the jungle grew too quiet. Not even the wind moved. Then, a vibration in the ground. A long, low growl rolled through the forest. Trees trembled, birds took flight, and from the shadows, it stepped out. The Beast King. It was larger than Veska remembered. 4 massive arms, a thick bone crest over its skull, and black armored skin that shimmered like metal. Its eyes burned, red, and its mouth dripped with venom. Veska's pulse quickened. She reached for her plasma blade. Reed raised a hand. Not yet. The Beast King sniffed the air, then growled. It saw them. It charged. Veska jumped sideways, landing in a tree. But Reed didn't move. The beast roared and thundered straight at him. At the last second, Reed spun left, and the beast's foot landed on a hidden net. Sharp vines wrapped around its legs, yanking it into a shallow pit. The creature screamed, slashing at the air. Reed didn't stop. He threw a bundle of sticky sap at its eyes, blinding it for a few seconds. Veska leapt in, slashing its side with her glowing blade. It roared louder, breaking the net. The Beast King stood, wounded but furious. It swung wildly. One claw caught Reed across the chest, knocking him into a tree. Veska screamed, "Reed!" But Reed coughed and stood, blood on his shirt, eyes still calm. "I'm fine," he growled. He ran again, leading the beast deeper into the trap zone. Tripwire snapped, spikes dropped from trees, cutting into the beast's back. The monster howled. Veska joined Reed. They moved like one. She slashed from above, he struck from below. Every attack made the beast slower, weaker. Then came the final step. Reed shouted, "Now!" Veska sliced a thick vine, and a massive dead tree, balanced with ropes, fell onto the Beast King, pinning it down. It writhed and screeched. Reed walked, up limping, bleeding, but unafraid. He raised his spear and drove it through the monster's eye. Silence. Then, a long, deep breath. Veska stood frozen. Not from fear. From awe. She whispered, "You did it." Reed sat down on a rock, wiping sweat and blood from his brow. He looked at her. "You still think I think like prey?" Veska stepped closer, kneeling in front of him. "No," she said softly. "Now I think your mind is more dangerous than any weapon." The Huntress's choice. The Beast King's corpse still lay in the pit, steam rising from its broken body. Birds returned to the trees. The jungle breathed again, but Veska didn't move. She stood beside Reed, staring at him, not the way a soldier looks at an ally, but like something more, something uncertain, something rare. Reed sat against a fallen tree, wrapping his bloody chest with part of his shirt. He winced but stayed silent, like pain didn't matter to him. Veska watched his hands, rough, scarred, but steady. "You should rest," she finally said. Reed looked up. Beast's dead. No more danger. Veska knelt down in front of him. "No, not that kind of rest." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Then what do you mean?" She hesitated. Words didn't come easy, not like this. Not when they came from the heart. "I've studied thousands of hunters," she said softly. "On many worlds, with stronger weapons, smarter minds. But none like you." Reed chuckled. "Flattery doesn't heal wounds." Veska didn't smile. She reached out and gently touched the blood-soaked bandage on his chest. "You shouldn't be alive. No other being could have done what you did. You used the jungle as your weapon. You planned every step. You killed a legend. With rope and dirt." She looked straight into his eyes. "And that means something." Reed looked away, a bit uncomfortable. "What are you getting at, Veska?" She took a breath. "My people choose mates through trials, combat, blood, honor. But all of that feels empty now." He frowned. "Why?" "Because I've seen something better," she said. "I've seen you." Reed blinked. "Wait, are you saying—" Veska nodded. "Yes. I want your genes." Reed coughed, then laughed. "You say that like you're asking to borrow a book." She didn't laugh. "I'm serious. You're rare. A type of strength that's dying in the galaxy. My kind. We breed for survival, for evolution. But we've forgotten instinct. We've forgotten wildness." She leaned in closer. "I want a child that carries your fire." Reed's smile faded. He studied her face. You're not joking. No. He stood slowly, wincing from pain, then looked at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. You barely know me, he said. I've watched everything that matters, Veska answered. How you move, how you think, how you don't give up even when it hurts. That's more than enough. There was silence between them. Reed looked at the sky. I never thought I'd be hunted by someone just to ask for my DNA. Veska tilted her head. Not just DNA. I don't want a test tube. I want you. The way your kind does it. Reed coughed again, either from his wound or pure shock. And if I say no? She stepped back, respectful. Then I returned to my world, alone. But I will carry your story forever. Reed looked at her for a long time. Finally, he whispered, You really mean this? Veska's voice was soft, but firm. A hunter like you deserves to pass on his genes. Legacy of the wild. The days after the Beast King's death were quiet, but not peaceful. Veska and Reed walked side by side through the dense forest. The jungle was no longer a battlefield. It felt calm, tamed. But something had changed between them. Veska had made her offer, a bold one, a personal one, and Reed hadn't answered yet. He needed time. But time was not something the galaxy gave freely. On the third day, a bright blue light appeared in the sky. A Drevelous scout ship landed in a clearing nearby. The humming of alien engines shook the leaves. Veska stepped forward. They've come for me, she said. Reed nodded. Then it's goodbye? She looked at him. Only if you want it to be. Before Reed could answer, 3 armored Drevelous soldiers stepped out of the ship. They looked strong, proud, and cold. When they saw Veska, they saluted. When they saw Reed, they stared in silence. One of them stepped forward. You killed the Beast King? He said to Reed, not as a question, but as a fact. Reed simply said, yeah. The soldier studied him. You are unaugmented, primitive. Reed shrugged. And yet the thing's still dead. Silence. Then the soldier turned to Veska. You made contact with a wild species. Against protocol. Veska stood tall. I did more than that. I chose him. The soldier's eyes widened. One stepped forward in anger. You would bond with this? Veska nodded. Calm, proud. Yes, he is more than you know. Reed scratched his neck. You people always this dramatic? Suddenly, a female officer exited the ship. Older, regal, scarred. She was Veska's mother. She looked at Reed like one might look at a dangerous beast. Veska walked toward her. I've made my decision, she said. The older alien's voice was cold. You would give up bloodlines of warriors, of kings. For a human? Veska nodded. He is a warrior. One our people no longer understand. One our children must learn from. Reed stepped forward, finally speaking from the heart. I didn't ask for this. I didn't come to impress aliens. I just wanted to survive. He looked at Veska. But if she sees something in me worth passing on, then maybe I should too. They, Drevelous, were silent. Then, slowly, the older woman stepped aside. If you fail her, she said to Reed, we will come back, and we won't be polite. Reed gave a half smile. Wouldn't expect anything less. The decision was made. Veska and Reed would leave Earth together, back to Drevelous, not as prisoner, but as mate, not as a specimen, but as legacy. And as the scout ship lifted off into the clouds, the jungle below whispered with the wind. A new future had begun. Born of Two Worlds years passed. The stories of the human hunter who killed the Beast King spread across star systems. Some thought it was a myth, others called it a warning. But on the planet Drevelous, it was a legend, carved in stone. Inside, a quiet valley surrounded by silver cliffs, a small home stood, not made of alien steel but wood, vines, and stone. Built by Reed. Veska stood outside, her armor replaced by light cloth. Her silver eyes watched the horizon as 2 suns set. The air was calm, but her heart was racing. Inside the home, a soft cry echoed. The child had woken. Reed stepped out with a sleepy smile and a baby wrapped in soft cloth across his chest. "Someone's got your eyes," he said. Veska smiled gently. "And your spirit." The child was no ordinary one. She had human skin tone, but faint lines of Drevilis glow ran under it. Her eyes shimmered silver blue. Her grip was strong, her mind sharp. At only 2 years old, she could climb trees, speak both languages, and read enemy movement with scary accuracy. They named her Kaelra, meaning born of 2 hunts, and she was already being watched, not by enemies, but by leaders. Generals from Drevalis came to see her. Scientists observed from a distance. Even human ambassadors visited, curious and unsure. Because Kaelra represented something never seen before, balance. Reed taught her survival. Veska taught her honor. Together they raised not a soldier, but a symbol. One day Kaelra stood before a crowd of Drevalis warriors and Earth officers. She held her parents' old weapons, Reed's blade and Veska's plasma knife. "I am not just a child," she said in a strong voice. "I am a path, between fear and strength, between machine and instinct, between worlds." The crowd went silent. Then applause shook the valley. That day, peace talks between Earth and Drevalis began, with Kaelra as their shared heir. Back in the home, Reed sat beside Veska as stars filled the night sky. "You still think I deserve to pass on my Janus?" he asked playfully. Veska leaned her head on his shoulder. "No," she whispered. "Now I think, the galaxy is lucky you did." And somewhere far away, in a jungle filled with shadows, the memory of a rope trap and a broken spear still lingered. The wild had given birth to a future, one born of 2 worlds,